All right, guys, and I believe we're up and running. And thank you very much for joining us on Facebook Live. And we have a very special guest, and this is pretty amazing. We have Jason Shron from Rapido Trains, and he's flashing the CN Tempo gear right there. But thank you, and via Canada. And thank you so much for joining us. This is one of those groundbreaking events that only happens once in a blue moon, and we are fortunate that Jason is brave enough to take us into China and show us his little, I guess, or big train factory. So, Jason, let's. How you doing, Jay?
Good. How are you?
All right. So
you
what?
Can see me now? Your people on Facebook can see me.
Yep, you're there.
Fantastic, fantastic. So this is the LRC factory. We have two factories. We have one factory in Guangxi Province, which is northwest of here, and we're in Guangdong Province, which is Canton Province, not far from Hong Kong. And this is where most of the model trains in the world are made here in this province. And so our factory is one of many, many factories, all within about an hour drive of each other. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. So why don't you ask me some questions and we'll get started? Or you want me to give you a tour, whatever you like.
Well, everybody's saying hello, and where the viewership is steadily increasing fast, and it's going to keep on getting bigger and bigger. And Willie, as always, is asking about the apartment E, but I think we answer that him all the time on that.
APTE.
APTE.
That's the advanced passenger.
So
Here,
I guess
I'll show you. This is outside the factory.
Yeah.
Okay. So see that big road right there? That just opened this year. So before that, there was nothing. It was just a field and a dirt road. And now there's a big road. In the distance, it's a bit hazy today, so you can't see it. But there's a highway on, up on stilts distance, and there's another bridge on top of that, which is a high-speed rail line. So the trains go by on there over 200 miles an hour all the time. Just sit by, but every 5 minutes.
Very nice. And how are the CN tempos coming?
I couldn't hear any of you there, so it's a bit buggy.
How are the tempos, CN tempos, coming along? Can you hear me?
What's that?
The CN tempos.
And you're gone. The CN tempos. The CN tempos are not in production yet. We've started production of them, and when you start production of any model train, there's a whole bunch of stuff you have to do before you can actually start making them. So there's a lot of planning that has to be done. We have to make painting masks. We have to make printing plates. Let me take you around and show you what's being done right now. Okay,
that would be great.
So I'm going to find a way to turn this camera around. Yeah, let me see if I can do this here. Oh, there we go. Now, you can see what I see now, right? You see
Perfect.
Outside?
Beautiful.
Okay. So I'm going to take you along the production line right now. First of all, you can see over here. So these RDCs look really nice. They're almost ready. They have to go through the assembly line one more time for final quality control, and also to have their couplers put on and final testing. They have to be tested another time. We're changing over the assembly line right now. That's why you see people are cleaning up and tidying and stuff. This assembly line was full of RDCs, but they're almost finished now. Here's the last batch of interiors being assembled. The chairs being put in one at a time. We've got the circuit boards being put on over here. Okay, and then here you've got, those are Northern Pacific RDCs. You can have a look here. Okay, these are Northern Pacific RDC2s, phase 1s, and they're going through the final shell assembly. It looks like all the grab irons are put on already, that sort of thing. We've got a video that we just uploaded onto YouTube, which shows this assembly line over the last couple of days. So you'll see it when it was full up working on the RDCs.
Very nice.
Still with you?
Yep. Perfect.
Great. I discovered what happened, by the way. The factory Wi-Fi kicked in, which of course doesn't allow Facebook. So I'm back on my cell signal. So
Okay.
these guys here are, they're doing circuit boards, final installation, checking, and testing. You can see all of these RDC chassis and circuit boards ready for have their shells put on. It's RDCs everywhere here. They're all in various stages of production. They all get tested. You see we've got the NC power cab over there. We've been through a lot of these. Here we are testing the sound models. These are VIA RDC2s being tested together.
And Jason, how was the demand on the RDC?
This looks like it's RDC quality control, fixing any issues that come up. Every model is tested and then flagged if there's a problem. These are gorgeous. Have a look at this. These are Western Pacific Zephyret cells. Isn't that lovely? We have a working gyrolite on the nose there. That just looks so cool. It's neat when we do stuff like for the Western market, because most of the stuff Rapido's ever made has been for the Eastern market. So we're only really getting into Western stuff now. This is our very simple test track. We put in other test tracks when we need them, like the one we saw earlier. But this is where our product engineers will be testing stuff. This is Mr. Guan. They're working on some project. I'm not sure. Here's our British Class 156. That was just being tested yesterday. Make sure everything works fine for that. Yeah. So I'll take you through some more stuff.
Awesome.
You hear me okay?
Perfect. Very good.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I'll go over and get my headset after so that I can actually hear what you're saying. Okay, here we have stirrups for the RDC 3s, and they all have to be laid out on two-sided tape so they can be painted stainless steel color. We don't make them in stainless steel because it's very hard to work with, so we work with brass usually. Sometimes phosphor bronze, making couplers. Imagine that's got to be a real exciting job. Coupler assembly. Let's see what else is going on here. This is getting ready of the packaging for the RDC, getting it all prepped. We're putting on little bits of white EVA foam there just to protect it in certain spots. Here we're trimming parts. Let's see what parts these are. These are parts for gondolas, HO scale gondolas.
Wow.
More trimming parts. Have a look over here. This is a product we haven't even announced yet. You're getting a sneak peek. Look at that. Ontario Northland gondola. We've never done that before. That looks pretty cool. It's the first gondola we've done with hat channels as opposed to Z channels on the side, or sorry, Z channel. We'll go through into the painting room. There's not much happening in painting right now because we just finished a major project. So the painting guys are working on the Royal Hudson steam locomotive. You can see here we're polishing. These are die cast boilers for the Royal Hudson, and they come with some pretty heavy mold parting lines. So they have to go through a number of different polishing steps, be polished before they can be painted, because you don't want to have big mold parting lines. I'll discuss that. That's all mixed here. Look at all these boilers. We have so many of these. And I'll take you around. They were here yesterday. They're probably still there. Hang on a second. Lots of storage. These are all packaging materials getting ready. These are all die cast parts here. Look at this. These are all die cast gearboxes for the Royal Hudson. They all have to be polished and trimmed. Thousands of them. Yeah, here they are. This was, I was looking at this yesterday. These are all boilers. They're all steam engine boilers here. This is how they come out of the mold. You look closely, you can see quite heavy duty mold parting lines. Okay, and so that's what the guys are doing. They're polishing them off. But there's so, I mean, I can't even lift this. These are so heavy here. And we've got lots of packaging ready, waiting to be our boxes ready to be used. These are for the Class 156 models. We have thousands of RDC boxes over here. RDC stuff everywhere. All right, let me take you on a little more of a tour here. Hang on a second. I will go to the printing room. That's mostly working on the British stuff now. British stuff has a lot more printing requirements than North American stuff does. So here you go. These are Class 156s. Okay. This is these are called tampo pad printing machines, right? And so every time you see a little logo or anything on the model, put on using one of these pad printing machines. Okay, and every time you put on a new logo, you got to test it. Make sure that's got to be set up. It takes a long time. They're all class 1, 5. All that's got to be pad printed. The silver outline on the door, the tiny little details there, little flashes and stuff like that. All that's got to be pad printed. It takes a long time. The way it works, I'll show you over here. So if you look closely, that's a steel plate. The steel plate has the negative of the artwork on it. Okay, it spreads the ink. It spreads the ink over the steel plate. And then it pulls the ink away, and the ink stays in the etched little bit. All right, and then it goes and the silicone pad picks it up and prints it on the model.
Wow.
Okay, this guy's setting up the machine for new position. It takes forever. There you go. Working the artworks there, making sure the gondolas are correct. Tons of gondolas here.
A lot of trains. Unbelievable.
Okay. There's the original. You can see there. That's an original etch. Okay, so it picks it up. The pad printer will pick that up from there and then drop it onto the model. Okay, this is the engineering office. A number of guys are out there doing some tests. I'll just show you. So we've got Ms. Chen is working on an N-scale model over here. She's designing it. It takes a really long time to design model trains. And here Mr. Fu is working on a steam engine, actually. Is that the... This is Liuling Arma. Okay, I'm not supposed to show you what steam engine that is. We haven't announced it yet. Anyway. And here, Mr. Lee, he's working on the tempo. So remember I said earlier, I don't know if you heard me then, that stuff takes a long time to prepare for production. So he's preparing everything for production. There's the tempo truck close up. He's assembling more samples for testing. Look at all those trucks he's working on there. Hey, Lee, 告诉我们的客户你好，你好。你好，你好。Okay, hello. Yeah. So Lee's been working on us for a long time. Okay, I'm going to try and get my headset on so I can hear you guys. Hang on a second. There we go.
You're back.
All right, let me get my headset.
Yep. And for everybody watching, I just want to thank you guys so much for joining. This is a real special treat with Jason Shron, CEO of Rapido Trains, taking us through a factory tour. And not many CEOs will let us do this, so we definitely appreciate Jason for doing that. And
now I hear you.
Up the factory. How's it going, Jason? Welcome back.
I hear you. Now, I'm happy to do Q&A now, but I want to talk about a couple of things before I start, okay? So can you see me still?
Floor is yours.
Good. So one of the things, whenever we put up a video of our factory in China, we get some of the same comments to us. So let's see. There is, people think it's slave labor, all right? And they comment about how we've got slave labor here. So if anyone's worked in a factory before, they can see what you have here is a very clean, very well-run organization. And if you look closely, you see that the people sitting here, their cell phones cost more than mine, all right? So there's no slave labor here. People are paid a very good wage. There is a labor shortage in this part of China. It's very hard to keep workers. The only way you're going to keep workers working in your factory is if you treat them extremely well and you pay them extremely well. So that's one of the criticisms that bothers me when I hear it. There's also no child labor at our factory. You can't have a 10-year-old make model trains. If the government does regular inspections, there's no child labor allowed here. I don't know what happens in northern China, textile factories and stuff like that, but it's, you know, it's like somebody comparing New York City with like the back of beyond in the middle of the wilderness of the Arizona desert. It's a very big and diverse country. The other thing is people always say, bring these jobs back to the USA. Okay, they always say that. Why are you letting Chinese people make this? We should make them here. Well, there's a couple of issues with that. I've discussed it many times that the cost of making models in North America is about 5 times what it costs here. It's because the cost of living in North America is about 5 times. So it means that a model that we retail for $325 now would retail for like $1,500, right? If you made it in North America. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2, and it's people always say, people get very emotional, so they don't give real good cogent arguments. Another issue is that the skill set is here. This is where most of the world's model trains have been built since the 1970s. It started in the 70s, and by the 1990s, almost all the model trains are being made here. By the early 2000s, like 90%, right? And people will always state their exceptions. Oh, Merklin's making some models in Eastern Europe. Well, they'll talk about how there was skill here. Look at the trains from AHM back in the 70s. A model, you can't compare a train made in the 70s by AHM with a passenger car that had about a dozen parts on it, with one of our models that has 300 odd parts. And let's take an example here. This is one of our New Haven 8600 series coaches. This is one of our lesser detailed models. There's still 200 parts on this thing.
Wow.
Okay, it takes a long time to make that. It's got to be designed. It's got to be made. And there are people here who've been doing that for the last 20, 25 years. I mean, Ms. Zhang, I'm going to just introduce you to her because she's one of the most awesome people in the world. Hang on a second. Hey, Zhang. 请告诉我们的客户你好。你好。你好. Let me see. 你好. Okay, good.
你好.
So,
你好.
Ms. Zhang, they said 你好. 他们说你好. So Ms. Zhang, I mean, first of all, she's not a kid. She's a mom, and she's in her late 40s. She's been designing model trains since she got out of university, right? This is where the skill is. So there's a cost issue, and there's a knowledge and skill issue if we make them here. So we can't say, bring these jobs back to, in our case, Canada, because we're not based in the USA. But when people say to us, it's very simplistic, bring these jobs back to the USA. This particular job, this one you're looking at right here, these people sitting in a factory making these 300, 400 part detailed model trains, that doesn't exist in the United States. It never exists in the United States. Maybe a small workshop was doing small numbers of models, but no one has ever made a locomotive with 450 parts in the United States and charged $325 with sound or $350 with sound. It just never happened. These jobs didn't exist in the United States to bring back to. The other question, these guys, when they start, because you tell them emotional about it, because I have to delete like hundreds of really awful emails on YouTube whenever we do this, right? I mean, really? You saw like making couplers, right? Who wants to do that all day? Okay, could you imagine 8 hours a day doing nothing but making couplers, right? Or whatever else. Yeah. These are jobs that not a lot of people want. And my final beef, which I got to get off my chest, is when we get the really nasty messages to us saying, this is so unpatriotic, don't buy these products. Like, what are you using to type the message? Was the phone made in the USA? Was the computer made in the USA? All right, so this is the kind of stuff we get all the time. But now, normally on my YouTube channels, I don't address it so directly, but we're on Facebook. I thought I can be more honest with everybody. Just say, it really bugs me when I get those messages.
Well, it's definitely eye-opening when people, when I see this factory, there's a lot of parts, a lot of work that is involved. It's very complicated. People think it's just a couple of parts and you're done. This is complicated stuff. And especially your trains, Rapido is known for their highly detailed, freight cars, rolling stock, steam and diesel. So it's not just a 6-part car, hundreds of parts involved. And
so you look at all these bins, right? These are all bins of models in various stages of production. Most of these, I think, are gondolas. Let's see what we got here. Toronto, Hamilton, and Buffalo, right? We haven't announced to run a gondolas. We're just going to bring them in when then. One of the reasons we're doing the gondolas is you always want to keep the different shops busy, right? Right now, the factory is gearing up to do a massive production of Royal Hudson steam locomotives. So the paint shop's not so busy, so they're working on these gondolas, right? And it keeps them busy. And look at the quality control. Every gondola has to be inspected and touched up, every
Wow.
single one. So people think that, hey, how did this get past quality control? Well, when you're making 10,000 cars or 5,000 cars or whatever many thousand cars you are, right? There's a lot. Look at all this stuff here. These are more gondola parts. These are all gondola ends, right? Your little British Columbia Railway right there. You see, you know, and there's so many of them. Like, let's have a look. What is this over here? Windows. Each window needs to have the gasket printed on the window.
Wow.
Right? So you think about all those steps, right? It's huge.
Yeah.
Anyway, so do you get to your customers have any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, a lot of product questions. A lot of requests on producing. So we could probably be here all day with certain requests, which you probably know the drill on that stuff. Any new Amtrak coming soon?
Any new Amtrak?
From
We have
Chris
an
Okuna.
Amtrak. Yes. I'll put myself back on the screen here. Hang on. So we do have. Let's see. There's an Amtrak model being announced next year. So yes, we do have more Amtrak coming.
Very nice.
No worries about that.
Fred is asking, heard the modernized FL9 with HEP is on the back burner. Any sense if it will be made?
Yes, it will definitely be made. The orders actually aren't bad. That sometimes when just projects get shoved behind, often because our focus is just elsewhere. For example, say we've got like that FL9 requires some more tooling. For that tooling investment, we can do a whole new car that's going to result in a much greater return. So sometimes, depending on company cash flow, we have to shove some models to the back burner, right?
Gotcha.
That one will be relaunched. I think we're relaunching it at Springfield, and we'll get it into production next year.
Nice. The one and only James Wright.
Hey, James.
You know him. Famous.
Of course, everyone knows James.
YouTuber. Are you completely sold out on the Royal Hudson Steam locos?
We have a handful available.
Right.
We generally make a handful of each number, sound only. We don't tend to make any silent inventory at all. But for sound, we found it's helpful to make a few extra of each number just to have on hand. They usually sell out before the goods arrive, but sometimes there's a few left at the end. But the silent stuff, I mean, we outsell sound to silent about 5 to 1. And the silent stuff doesn't sell, just the sound.
I'm going to make a note to buy more Royal Hudsons.
Excellent.
Sorry, making my notes. Nick Ozorak, actually a pretty good question. How do you see 3D printing changing model production? I hear this a lot. And is there even
I hear it a lot.
Or?
I hear it a lot too. But I just had a meal last week, and when I was still in Canada, with somebody who works for HP on these $800,000 printers. He sells them, and he says it's going to be good for mass production. Wow. My response, and he didn't have an answer for this, is there's a couple of things. Material cost is very high, and the quality of the output is not there yet. Okay, you still get a lot of banding, and you know when you look at model trains, we have rivets that are 0.15 millimeters in diameter. We have grooves on the models and lines on the models that like raised lines that are 0.15 millimeters in diameter, which is tiny, right? And on 3D printing models, you still get a lot of banding that has a problem. You know, you can see it, and there's also the issue of time as well. When you inject all of our models, they're injection molded or they're die cast. Can you still hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, good. So it's very quick. It's like a few seconds to inject a whole body for a locomotive. The 3D print that takes a long time. So when 3D printing reaches the point where it's like on Star Trek, where you walk up to your replicator and you just tell the replicator what you want, and it shows up with some sparkly lights, at that point, I think we'll be able to switch over.
All right. That would be nice. Another run on new look buses or?
Yes. So we actually have a new look bus that's fully designed and waiting to go to the mold shop. But this enters into the same issue, that the economic side of things that a lot of people don't see. A bus takes more time to assemble and decorate than a passenger car, because the lining and logos on buses tend to be very, very complex, right? But whereas our passenger cars retail from $110 to $150, we can't charge that for a bus, right? So the buses, our margin on the buses is very, very, very small. We make them because there's a lot of bus nuts at Rapido, myself included. And so we generally just squeeze them into production when we can, in between the model trains. So the model trains is what pay the bills, and the buses are what we do for fun. So we've got like 3 N-scale trains and a couple of HO trains that we're putting into the tooling shop in the new year. Because they're going to bring in so much more money to Rapido than the buses will, we're going to have to delay the bus tooling a little bit longer. But yes, we do have more buses. In fact, we have a shipment of buses, Canadian new look buses, arriving at the warehouse in a few days that we haven't announced. We're just brought them out.
And what's the status on the well cars?
The well cars. So this is one of the reasons I'm in China. The well cars are supposed to be made at the Rapido factory, which is in Guangxi province. And they keep on telling me that they don't want to make it because we're selling them quite at a let's say competitive price, and the factory says it's too low. So one of the reasons I'm here is to negotiate with them and figure out ways we can save money on the well car production to bring them out more quickly. And I have some ideas on how we could change the pad printing process, where we can print what's called more hits at one time. And that would reduce the cost of making the models. So we're negotiating that, but we hope to get them in production in the next few months.
All right, go get them, Jason. Any updates on the B36-7s? Pre-production samples look great.
They look great, and Gareth is working very hard on that. That's his #1 priority. We should have a really nice sample with all the lights working and everything. We're going to do a video in early January. So our YouTube channel in January will put the video up, and then the order deadline is February 11th. And realistically, we do want to start production pretty quick after that. We'll probably be starting production around March 1st, March 10th. So make sure that people get the orders in for the B36s on time. I'm amazed by the response in the B36. It's been very, very high. And I gave Gareth carte blanche. I said, you go ahead and design it the way you want to design it. He's a diesel detail nut. He's obsessed with getting everything correct, the same way I am with passenger cars. He is with modern diesels. And he came to me and said, we've designed the train, and then showed me the mold list, and I freaked out at the cost. But I said, Gareth, I trust you, and we'll make all the detail variations that you want. And sure enough, the project is in the black, so I'm very happy with that.
Well, you've been having a lot of good home runs on your latest diesel announcements. And Keenan wants to know, a good question. On average, how many hours would you guess it takes to make a freight or passenger car from start to finish?
A passenger car probably takes one of our level of detail. If you have one of our less detailed cars by another manufacturer, I won't mention any names, it takes a lot less time. But for our level of detail, it takes about 8 hours to make a passenger car. So that's one of the reasons when we talk about, bring these jobs back to the USA. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to make, say, $10, $12 an hour making model trains. Well, there you go. Just to make this car, just in your labor costs, costs $100. Okay. Then there's your material costs. And then there's your factory building, your machines, your overhead, your labor, all that stuff. Right. That passenger car is now retailing for about $500-600 if it's made, because the thing is here, the cost of labor is much, much lower. And people say, well, it's your factory workers are starving. No, they're not, because the cost of buying stuff is so much lower here. It's all relative. Yeah. Right. So I want to show you something. Let's have a look here. Hang on a second. I'm walking through here. When the whole assembly line is set up, it's really funny. You see the cell phone after cell phone all lined up. Hang on a second. Okay. So can you see now? All right.
Yep.
These are not slave people. You can see with their expensive cell phones. Okay. A lot of them would like to listen to music when they're working. All right. Over there, like this is This is not slave labor. In fact, I remember the best comment I ever saw when somebody wrote a comment on our YouTube channel saying, oh, slave labor, I can never buy another model train again. And somebody else wrote, hey, slave girl over there has a more expensive cell phone than I do.
That's true. Those are the latest and greatest are very expensive.
Seriously though, when working here at our factory, it's the equivalent. If you look at the pay they get in a year, is the equivalent of a Canadian making $50,000 a year, and $50,000 a year is like working in, it's a good job it's a managerial level job at a bank. Right, is in terms of the pay. And the amazing thing is they insist on working overtime. If you don't let them work overtime, they won't work in your factory, because when they work overtime, they get paid, time and a half. Right. So you have to provide overtime options for the people to come in to work an evening shift. If you don't offer overtime, they will not come work for you. They will go work for somebody else. And the amazing thing about Chinese labor culture, especially here in southern China, is that they save 50% of their income. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine someone like Canada, United States, saving you 50% of your income? I wish I could save that, right? But my mortgage is like out the wazoo and whatever, right? But like there's the average in China is to save 50% of their income for retirement.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And any update on the FP7s, FB79s?
Yes, the FP7s are in production at the other factory, and they're in production now. So they will be delivering in the spring. Absolutely.
Very good. And a lot of people are hoping you don't get taken by the government over there.
Can I? It's funny.
I don't know what to say by that. I just thought that was funny.
I will address it, actually. I am obviously concerned right now. Canada and China are in a diplomatic spat. It's not so serious. There are thousands of Canadians in China right now. So the chances of my being nabbed are pretty low. But yeah, let's put it this way. My parents have called me now twice saying, come home now. You have to come home immediately. The biggest purpose of this trip, apart from coming here, it's amazing. I came in and discovered that the factory had forgotten to put the stirrup steps on the RDC 2s and 3s. Discovered it here. Had I not come here, we would have not found this until they arrived in Canada. And then we would have to have the factory send us steps. We would have spent weeks putting steps on in Canada. So it's been a really useful trip for me to be here to solve issues that have come up. But the real purpose of the trip is to go up to the other factory, which I'm heading there on Sunday, because we're finding it logistically, there's lots of problems with the factory being in another province. And anyone who's in the industry is they're doing it, they're nodding their head right now. I guess that, I get this. And that's what we had told our partners in the other factory. We said, you're going to have real logistical problems. And what I mean by logistical problems is, so say here, you get the mold shop is down the street, right? So you go there when he's injecting your models. If you find a problem, they stop injecting, and then they fix the problem and they re-inject. Well, because the other factory moved to the other province, they inject the shells, they ship them to them. They said, we have a problem, fix this. Okay, you just lost 3 days. Right. So that we're finding that production from the other factory is happening at a much slower pace than this factory. It's happening and the quality is good and beautiful models, but it just takes longer. Because whenever they find an issue, they gotta get the stuff brought in from the other province. It's arranging a truck and driving it up. It's like an 8-hour drive, right? So as opposed to a 15-minute drive over here, right? So that's what's been like. Just while I was here, one of our mold guys, Mr. Ju, just showed up with bags full of RS-18, RS-11 parts. He's doing final checks on the molds for production. He just brought them over in his car. Went over the parts with Mr. Lee and then went back to his factory. He's not 15 minutes from here.
Yeah, it's a lot of challenges, and we're hoping you get home with safe return. That's for sure.
Yeah, I hope so. Definitely. A little nervous about getting on the train on Sunday. Let's put it that way. I have to show my passport.
Well, I'm not sure how much time you have. If you want to keep on going or not,
we can keep going for a few minutes. No problem.
All right, just shout out when you're ready. Any updates on the Modern 9's FL9s?
You talked about that one.
We just went over that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're gonna relaunch those early 2019. Hopefully, I think the goal is to relaunch them at Springfield if we're ready. Otherwise, it'll be a month or two later.
Any hint on the RS-18? You released My Pocketbook is Crying. Nice try.
So the RSA teams, they're in they're in pre-production. They're getting ready for production now. Mr. Lee is working on that right now, getting them ready. They have all the artworks, which are the painting diagrams, so that they can paint them. They're making final tweaks to the molds, just to make sure everything. We just discovered, for example, that the one of the things we were arguing about before you called, I got on pretty late, was the Pennsylvania Railroad antenna, the train phone antenna in the RS-11.
Right.
The holes to mount it are actually in the mold. And we said, guys, not every Pennsylvania Railroad RS-11 has the train phone. So you can't put those mounting holes in the mold. They've got to be drilled at the factory. So then they said, well, that's a lot of positions. I said, it's called a CNC drill. They cost about $300, and that's what we got to get for this factory. The other factory has about 4 of them.
Wow.
Right. So it's very inexpensive.
It sounds like a lot of problems, a lot of issues, but it sounds like you're on top of it.
We have to be. And when I come here, Gareth and Bill also come to the factory, and we're going to try and spread out so that, the next trip will probably be Bill. The trip after that will probably be Gareth. And that's what we're doing, is that we're solving issues. Because issues like this come up all the time. And when we're back home in Canada, the United States, Bill works out of Connecticut. We get the email from the guys with a problem. We see it after the factory's closed. So we email the response, and then they do a test the next morning, and they email back. It takes 4 days.
Yeah.
And when I'm here, it takes 10 minutes. No, kidding you not, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So the Royal Hudson, we've got a Hall sensor in the Royal Hudson. Is the sample still over here? No, it's back in the office. We have a Hall sensor, which and a magnet on the flywheel. And the way it works is the every time the magnet hits the Hall sensor, it registers a turn, and then there's a calculation done in the decoder so that there's 4 chuffs per rotation of the wheel. Okay, and it's a really neat feature to have this. We're not the first, as we can pretend that we are, but not first. So anyway, and we were finalizing this. And there were problems, and I was here yesterday working with Ms. Dunn, and 20 minutes, we had it solved. And Colin, who's my partner here in China, he says to me, if we had to program, send to you, send it back, send to you, this would have taken a month. Yeah. And it was 20 minutes. Yeah. Because we were able to look at it, make a small adjustment, look at it, make a small, done, it's ready. And I had Mohan, who's one of our team in Canada, who's an electrical engineer. He's the one designing this whole thing with the Hall sensor, what have you. And he's, so I had him on my phone, and we worked it all out in 20 minutes. So that is so valuable.
It seems like you have so many key people and a big team around you. How'd you get into manufacture? How did you build your team? How did you get started?
Are you talking about the team in China or the team back home?
I guess both. How did it all form? Oh.
I'll try not to kill.
I think we lost you. Almost.
That looked really awesome.
The government got him.
I'm being let out in cuffs. So what were you saying about the was it the team at home or here in China?
No, both. How did it all form? How did it all come to fruition? It sounds like you have so many key people on both teams, and
absolutely.
We would love to know more about your company.
So I was doing I was barking up the wrong tree academically. I did a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Visual Arts. I did a Master's of Art History. And then before I started the PhD in art history, I remember someone asking me what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I was engaged to be married, and my wife and I were in Winnipeg, or fiance at the time. And I said, well, what I'm going to do is probably go do a PhD in England for art history. But what I really want to do is to make model trains all day. Huh. And so I was really unhappy not being in England. I love England, but I was unhappy doing the PhD. I realized I was not doing what I want to do for a career. And I remember at one point I was actually in tears, 27 years old or whatever it was, and turned to my wife and I said, I hope our kids do what they want for their lives, because I'm not doing what I want to do. And then I said to her another time, this is a very expensive hobby. I was working on my trains while I was there. There are some years when you're buying sound systems and whatever, your hobby could cost $5-10 grand a year.
Yeah.
And she says to me, well, as long as the hobby pays for itself, it's fine. And what she meant was sell stuff on eBay, right? Because I was selling Doctor Who books on eBay at the time. And I buy a Doctor Who book for $5 in Canada and sell it for 50 pounds in the UK. It's very strange how that worked out. That meanwhile, so I thought, hobby pays for itself. And that's when I started in my spare time as a model train manufacturer. I commissioned some guys at Coslow shops to make kits for me, the LRC coach kits, back in 2003 and 4. And then I came back from England. I had no degree, I had no job, and I had no money. So I said, you know what? If there's ever a time to try this, it's now, right? Give it a shot, because I got nothing to lose.
Right.
And so, you can imagine how my father-in-law felt when I come home with my wife, his daughter, and this good for nothing comes home with nothing, right? What are you wasting my who did my daughter marry? Yada, yada, yada. But meanwhile, he ended up being quite supportive, and helped me out actually with initial investment. And I raised some money. At one point I had a partner. I went to China. I tried to find a factory, eventually met Colin through a mutual friend. And then Colin and I have worked together now for almost 15 years. I guess 14 years. And he and I, first we worked with other factories. And that was always a problem, because when we worked with other factories, they get a big order from another company. In one case, they got an order for plastic plates, and they wouldn't make our model trains because they were making so much money making plastic plates.
Wow.
Right, what are you going to do? So and then over time, we realized we had to start our own factory. So in 2011, Huang, who's our partner in the other factory, an engineer, he left the old factory, and we immediately snatched him up, and he worked for us directly. And then Huang, and in 2013, Bill and I were in China, and we just said, look, we need to start a factory. And Huang says, okay, I'll start one. And that's how the first Rapido factory started. And then Colin and I realized that we needed to start a second factory, because one factory couldn't do enough production in a year to keep us growing, to keep paying for all the new molds. So then we started this factory in 2016.
Wow. And
in terms of the people, so Collins, he like Ms. Zhang is his classmate, right? He comes from Hunan province, north of here, and so does she. And I remember when we were about to start this factory, she comes to I had a hotel room, I got a suite with a little living room so that we could have meetings. And then she came and Colin introduced, this is my classmate. And what does she do? Oh, she's been designing model trains for the last 20 years.
Wow.
Right. So we said, why don't you come work for us? So we started just based at getting people who we knew were good.
Yeah.
And that's how we built the team here in China. And just recently, if you watch our new YouTube video, introduce you to Mr. Liang. You probably, a lot of your viewers know that a factory recently closed in China.
Yeah.
And so we're not dummies. We contacted people we knew in the factory and said, you want to come work for us? So we have these 5 people that came over from the factory, and it's like, what would take a normal worker here 10 minutes takes them 3. Right. They're so good because they've got that, Mr. Liang's been doing model trains for 7 years. He knows what he's doing. And the team in Canada, it was initially me and a friend of mine was helping out. And Dan Garcia, he and I became friends and realized that, hey, we got a lot in common. And I remember turning to him and saying, you want to come work for me?
There you go.
So he came on in 2007. And then Bill, every time I would call branch line distributors, Bill and I would talk for an hour. So and I finally said to Bill, okay, Bill, you're having a good time there, but I want you to come work for me. And when the time was right, he came and worked. And so it was just Dan, Bill, and me for a long time, and Janet. It was the 4 of us for years. And then only recently we've really expanded with Gareth and Dan Darnell and Josh Anderchek and Mohan, and all these people have come on. Mike's come on, Rosalind's come on, Jordan. It's a big team. And obviously my wife has been my partner the whole way through. So without her, they wouldn't exist.
That's sweet. Yeah, it's important, and plus, you got a very hard work ethic. I'm sure you're traveling to China, and it's probably the hardest on your family. I mean, to build a company like that from ground up is very overwhelming, and I'm sure it's you've had your ups and downs, but it seems like your company, and we see it in the orders. I mean, people are just going crazy for your product now. This year, Rapido has exploded with all the new North American products too. So that's really helped in America, because mainly, that's
we've expanded in the US, and that's Bill and Gareth obviously are big on the American stuff, as well as Dan. But look, we're all model railroaders at Rapido. Rosalind's not a model railroader, but she builds models. Yeah. Janet is not a model, but everybody else is a model railroader, right? so we love this stuff. We put that kind of crazy attention to detail. Like, when you open up our model, and in the bathroom that you can't see because there's no window, it's still got the sink and the toilet and the taps. Like that's the crazy, the passenger, the dining car, and we're just finishing up the designs to start tooling on the HO scale dining car we announced. And, the factory comes to me and says, there's 256 parts. I think we've got to pare it down. And I wrote back saying, here's 4 parts you forgot. Add them in. So there's that kind of attention. And I had a really great story from Shron, who's one of our factory supervisor engineer. He is in touch with all the other factories in China. And he said, our production numbers are amongst the biggest in China right now.
Really?
And this I find to be amazing. I can't believe it. I know there's other companies that have 3 times the number of employees we do. Right. And to find out that our production numbers are amongst the biggest, and ESU has told us that we're their biggest, most of the time we're their biggest customer in North America.
Wow.
For sound equipment models.
Wow.
So, and it just started out as a very small company. And only in the last couple of years that we really managed. So we've become noticed. I think things like the Southern Pacific RDC, SP10 got us noticed on the West Coast. I think the B36 announcement got us noticed. I think the FA2, when people said, oh no, another FA2, and they saw our FA2, I think that sort of thing, with the train phone antenna on the PRR model, that's just, I love that train phone. It just looks so nice when you have it on there, and it's straight and stuff. So I guess that's what's it. But I'll tell you, the challenges are huge. So I was supposed to go to Springfield this year, and now I can't. My wife told me yesterday that my exit visa has been revoked.
Okay.
and that's largely due to all the travel. I mean, I was in Montreal, then England, and then here, all in the space of about 3 weeks. And I got 3 kids in school, right? Yeah. And so the toil. And another trouble that we're finding now, what's so hard is that we're all stretched quite thin. We actually have to hire somebody new, and our plan is to hire a new person on in 2019 to help us better manage the projects, just to make sure that we don't suddenly say, when production's well underway, oh, did we do the manual for this?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Well, that's good that you're on target and on point. And with the RDCs that you first came out with, even for us, we've had other companies that we sold RDCs for, and we were so skeptical because we were like, there's no way that they've been on the market before and we're selling them at, bargain
total discount
prices. Yeah. And when we came out with yours and they saw the RDC quality, people were going nuts. And it's a totally different engine and build that anyone's ever done before. So
So here, look at this. I think this really says it all. When you look, I'm just trying to get the light here so I can catch it. Yeah. That really says it all. When you look at that detail level underneath there, every pipe, everything's there under here, right? And the fact that our motors are, I see if I have an RDC1 here. I love this. Even blank windows. Look at that, blanked windows, just like the real thing. There's a snack bar in there, just like the real thing. I think a big selling point, though, you don't want to see more Vias. I love Via, but let's take something American out here. There's the B&O. Let's see what else I got. There's B&O. There's no more B&O. The Santa Fe's all left.
Oh, okay. That by far has been the best-selling unit. And, even though the price it's a higher price tag, but for a 2-pack, people, they just love it. And they know the quality and detail is going to be there.
All right, here we go. Where's that? Now I've lost the B&O one I had a second ago. Hang on a second. No, it's Rock Island. Isn't that nice? There's a Rock Island RDC there.
There you go.
Right. And I can't reach the other ones. I'm going to have to take a Via one because I can't reach these other guys. But have a look. Right. The big difference on our models, and one of the reasons that they love it, is the daylight. Right? is that you can see right through because there's no motors in there blocking the view. Because the motors are tiny, buried in the floor. I don't even know where this came from now. All right. Any more questions before we head out?
There are, but I'm sure we're going to keep on getting them, and we should probably wrap it up just because there's a lot of requests and everything, but we get the main gist of it. And I do want to thank you so much. It is very rare for a CEO of a model train company to be so accessible. Most of these companies, manufacturers, they don't have a CEO who's the face behind the company. So you being out here and really giving us access to your factory is just unbelievable, and we really appreciate it. We had
pleasure.
A crazy amount of views here, and I'm sure people are going to be talking about this for a long, long time. And Jason, if you guys haven't known about him or his company, they are becoming the largest HO company. I mean, the amount of orders are huge, and they're even getting stronger and better. And Jason is fun, dynamic, entertaining, all in one, but he puts out a great, excellent product. And the detail is there, and the proof is in the, I would say pudding, but we'll just say train.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. It's been great seeing you.
Thank you very much, Jason. Do appreciate it, and have a great rest of the trip. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.